April 15th, 1912. 2:20 a.m. The Titanic slips beneath the North Atlantic. 1,500 people are dying in the freezing water. The nearest ship, the Carpathia, is 58 miles away. It will take 4 hours to arrive. By then, most people in the water will be dead from hypothermia. They have about 15 minutes. But here's what almost nobody knows. There was another way to cross the Atlantic in 1912. Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin had already built airships that could fly 1,000 miles without stopping. His newest design, the one that was sitting in a hangar in Germany, could have reached the Titanic in under 6 hours, fast enough to save lives. So why wasn't it there? This isn't a story about what happened. It's a story about what could have happened and why the airship industry lost the April 15th, 1912. 2:20 a.m. The Titanic slips beneath the North Atlantic. 1,500 people are dying in the freezing water. The nearest ship, the Carpathia, is 58 miles away. It will take 4 hours to arrive. By then, most people in the water will be dead from hypothermia. They have about 15 minutes. But here's what almost nobody knows. There was another way to cross the Atlantic in 1912. Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin had already built airships that could fly 1,000 miles without stopping. His newest design, the one that was sitting in a hangar in Germany, could have reached the Titanic in under 6 hours, fast enough to save lives. So why wasn't it there? This isn't a story about what happened. It's a story about what could have happened and why the airship industry lost the race to own the sky before it even began. Let's go back 3 years. 1909. Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, a retired German cavalry officer, has just done something nobody thought possible. He's built a rigid airship that works, not a hot air balloon, not a blimp. A rigid airship with an internal metal frame, multiple gas cells, and engines powerful enough to fly against the wind. The LZ-3 flies 350 miles in 11 hours. The German government is impressed. They give him funding. By 1910, Zeppelin launches the world's first commercial airline, DLAG, Deutsche Luftschiffahrts Aktiengesellschaft. The flagship is the LZ-7 Deutschland. It carries 20 passengers. Berlin to Dusseldorf in 9 hours. People pay the equivalent of $3,000 in today's money for a ticket. It's a sensation. Over 34,000 people fly on Zeppelin airships between 1910 and 1914. Here's the thing. These airships were fast. The LZ-10 Schwaben could cruise at 45 miles per hour. That's faster than most ships of the era, which averaged 20 to 25 knots, about 23 to 29 miles per hour. And Zeppelin was already thinking bigger. In 1912, he proposed something radical, transatlantic airship service, an airship that could fly from Germany to New York in 3 days. No stopping, no refueling, just straight across the Atlantic. The ship would carry mail, passengers, and cargo. It would revolutionize international travel. He even had a name for it, the LZ-14. Construction was scheduled to begin in 1913, April 14th, 1912. 11:40 p.m. The Titanic hits an iceberg 400 miles south of Newfoundland. The ship has enough lifeboats for 1,178 people. There are 2,224 people on board. The nearest ship is the Californian, just 10 miles away. But her radio operator has gone to bed. They never hear the distress call. The Carpathia picks up the SOS at 12:20 a.m. Captain Arthur Rostron immediately changes course, full steam ahead. But she's 58 miles away. At maximum speed, it will take nearly 4 hours. The Titanic sinks at 2:20 a.m. When the Carpathia arrives at 4 a.m., most of the people in the water are already dead. Hypothermia kills in minutes at those temperatures. The Carpathia rescues 705 survivors from lifeboats. 1,517 people die. Here's the brutal math. If help had arrived just 2 hours earlier while the Titanic was still afloat, nearly everyone could have been saved. 2 hours. That's all it would have taken. Now, here's the question nobody asked in 1912. What if an airship had been nearby? Let's run the numbers. A Zeppelin in 1912 could cruise at 45 miles per hour. The Titanic sank 400 miles from the nearest major port, Halifax, Nova Scotia. If a transatlantic airship had been making a routine crossing from Europe to New York, it could have been within 200 miles of the Titanic's position. At 45 miles per hour, that's a 4.5-hour flight, fast enough to arrive before the ship sank. But here's where it gets complicated. What could an airship actually do? The LZ-10 Schwaben carried 20 passengers. Even if you removed all the passenger compartments, you might fit 50 people. Maybe 75 if you're desperate. Not enough to save everyone, but enough to make a difference. An airship could have done 3 things a ship couldn't. First, it could arrive while the Titanic was still afloat. That means evacuating people directly from the deck, not from lifeboats in freezing water. Second, it could hover, drop rope ladders, winch people up. We know this was possible. The German military was already training soldiers to rappel from Zeppelins in 1912. Third, and most importantly, it could have stayed overhead and coordinated the rescue. The Titanic fired distress rockets. The Californians saw them but didn't respond because they thought they were company signals. An airship overhead with searchlights and a radio? That changes everything. Ships would have known exactly where to go. Could it have saved everyone? Number? Could it have saved hundreds more? Absolutely. So why wasn't there an airship anywhere near the Titanic? Here's the uncomfortable truth. In 1912, airships and ocean liners were in direct competition, and the ocean liner industry was winning. The Titanic represented a $7.5 million investment, about $220 million today. White Star Line had spent a decade building luxury liners to dominate the transatlantic passenger trade. They weren't about to let some German count with a gas balloon steal their business. But the real problem wasn't competition. It was infrastructure. An airship needs a mooring mast, a hangar, hydrogen supply, ground crew, weather monitoring. In 1912, none of that existed outside of Germany. Zeppelin proposed building transatlantic infrastructure in 1910. He approached investors in Britain and America. They laughed at him. Ocean liners were proven technology. Airships were experimental toys. The British Admiralty conducted a study in 1911. Their conclusion? Rigid airships have no practical military or commercial value. 1 year later, the Titanic sank, and suddenly everyone was talking about aerial rescue. But by then, it was too late. Zeppelin's transatlantic plans were shelved. The LZ-14 was never built. And then World War I started. August 1914. War breaks out. The German military realizes Zeppelins have one massive advantage. They can fly over enemy territory. In 1915, Germany launches the first strategic bombing campaign in history. Zeppelins attack London, Paris, and military targets across Belgium. They're terrifying. Silent death from above. No warning, no defense, but they're also vulnerable. One incendiary bullet in a hydrogen cell, and the entire airship becomes a fireball. By 1917, the British develop explosive and incendiary ammunition specifically designed to destroy airships. Airplane fighters get faster and can reach higher altitudes. The Zeppelin raids become suicide missions. Germany loses dozens of airships and hundreds of crew. The propaganda damage is permanent. Zeppelins go from symbols of progress to symbols of German aggression. After the war, the Treaty of Versailles forces Germany to hand over its remaining Zeppelins to the Allies as war reparations. Count Zeppelin dies in 1917 before the war ends. He never sees his dream of transatlantic passenger service, but his company, Luftschiffbau Zeppelin, survives. And in 1928, they build one final airship to prove transatlantic travel was possible all along. October 1928. The Graf Zeppelin, the LZ-127, makes its first transatlantic crossing. Germany to New Jersey in 111 hours, 4.5 days. She carries 20 passengers and a crew of 40. Luxury cabins, a dining room, heated sleeping compartments, the ticket price, $3,000, about $53,000 today. Cheaper than first class on an ocean liner and 3 times faster. Between 1928 and 1937, the Graf Zeppelin completes 590 flights. She crosses the Atlantic 144 times. She carries 13,110 passengers. Not a single passenger is injured. Not a single flight is canceled due to mechanical failure. She proves everything Count Zeppelin said in 1912 was possible. Transatlantic airship travel works. It's safe, it's profitable, it's faster than ships. And here's the kicker. If the Graf Zeppelin had existed in 1912, she absolutely could have responded to the Titanic disaster. Her cruising speed was 68 miles per hour, faster than the early Zeppelins. Her range was 6,800 miles, enough to cross the Atlantic twice without refueling. From Germany to the Titanic's position, about 30 hours. From New York to the Titanic, 12 hours. Fast enough to arrive while the ship was still afloat. Fast enough to coordinate rescue ships. Fast enough to save lives. But she was built 16 years too late. So let's imagine the alternate timeline. It's 1912. Zeppelin's transatlantic service is operational. The LZ-14 makes weekly crossings from Germany to New York. On April 14th, the LZ-14 is halfway across the Atlantic when it receives a distress call. Captain Heinrich Mathy, the best Zeppelin commander in Germany, plots an intercept course, 6 hours away, maximum speed. The LZ-14 arrives at 4 a.m. The Titanic is still afloat but sinking fast. Mathy brings the airship low, deploys rope ladders. The crew begins winching up women and children from the deck. They can't save everyone, but they save 75 people who would have died. More importantly, the airship's searchlights guide the Carpathia directly to the lifeboats. No survivors are missed. No one drifts away in the darkness. Final death toll, 1,440 instead of 1,517. Not a miracle, just a different technology in the right place. And the world would have learned a very different lesson that day. Instead of ships need more lifeboats, the lesson would have been we need airships patrolling the Atlantic. The entire history of aviation changes. So why didn't it happen? Money, politics, and ego. The steamship industry had billions invested in ocean liners. They controlled transatlantic travel. They controlled the ports. They controlled the narrative. Airships were a threat, so they made sure airships were seen as dangerous, unreliable, and impractical. And, to be fair, early airships were dangerous. The Deutschland crashed in 1910. The LZ-5 burned in 1910. The Schwaben caught fire in 1912. But ocean liners were also dangerous. The Titanic proved that. The difference is, when an ocean liner sank, it was called a maritime disaster. When an airship crashed, it was called proof that airships don't work. Count Zeppelin spent his entire fortune trying to build transatlantic infrastructure. He died broke, believing he'd failed. But he didn't fail. He was just 20 years too early. By the time the Graf Zeppelin proved him right, the world had moved on. Airplanes were faster, safer, cheaper. The age of the airship was over before it ever really began. The Titanic disaster changed maritime law forever. Ships were required to carry enough lifeboats for everyone. Radio operators had to monitor distress frequencies 24 hours a day. Ice patrols were established in the North Atlantic. But no one ever asked, what if help had come from above? Count Zeppelin asked that question. He spent 20 years trying to answer it. By the time he proved it was possible, the world had stopped listening. Somewhere in the North Atlantic, 1,517 people died because the rescue ship was too far away. And somewhere in Germany, an airship sat in a hangar, ready to fly with nowhere to go. The race between ships and airships wasn't decided by technology. It was decided by timing, money, and the stubborn refusal to imagine a different future.